He was fired from the company he created, publicly humiliated, rejected by the world he helped build. For most people, that would have been the end of the story, but for Steve Jobs, it was only the beginning. This is the story of a man who turned pain into purpose, who took failure and reshaped it into innovation that changed humanity. He wasn't the richest, the smartest, or the most educated. He was something rarer, a man obsessed with excellence, a dreamer who refused to compromise, a rebel who saw beauty where others saw circuits. And through that vision, he built something more powerful than technology. He built belief. Imagine being told you're not good enough for your own dream. Imagine losing everything you've created. Most people would give up, walk away, and disappear. But not Steve. He looked at the ashes of his defeat and said, "All right, let's start." Again, that's the spirit that built Apple, revived Pixar, and reshaped how we live, communicate, and dream. He believed that technology should not only work, it should move you, it should inspire you, it should feel human. But his journey didn't start with wealth or power. It began in a small garage in Los Altos, California, a space filled with wires, dreams, and the relentless pursuit of perfection. He dropped out of college, not because he didn't care about learning, but because he wanted to learn what mattered. He slept on floors, walked miles to free meals, and sat in on calligraphy classes simply because they were beautiful. That faith, that obsession with creativity, became the foundation of everything he built. Apple wasn't born from money. It was born from madness, from the idea that art and engineering could live together in harmony. When the world saw computers as cold and mechanical, Steve saw them as tools of self-expression, about making something so pure that it changed how people saw the world. But that vision came with a cost. His drive was intense, his perfection unforgiving, and the world wasn't ready for someone who demanded the impossible. Yet, through every failure, every setback, Steve Jobs carried one unshakable belief, that the people crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. This is not just the story of a businessman. It is the story of a man who taught us that passion and pain can coexist, and that even when life breaks you, you can rebuild something greater. This is the story of Steve Jobs, the man who dared to dream differently, the dropout who dreamed 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Steve Jobs wasn't born into wealth or privilege. He was adopted, raised by working-class parents who promised to give him a good education, but school never excited him. Curiosity did. He was fascinated by design, by how things worked, by how ideas could change people's lives. At Reed College, he dropped out not because he was lazy, but because he wanted to follow what truly inspired him. He wandered into calligraphy classes, studied typography, and learned that even the smallest details could hold beauty. At the time, it made no sense, but years later, that obsession with simplicity and design became the soul of the Macintosh, and later, the iPhone. Jobs believed that creativity was just connecting things, and he collected ideas everywhere he went. His message was simple: you don't need to follow a traditional path to build an extraordinary life. You just need the courage to trust your gut and the vision to see meaning in moments that others overlook. To the birth of Apple, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock in 1976, inside a small garage in Los Altos, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak began building the future. With almost no money, just passion and vision, they created the first Apple computer. It wasn't just a machine, it was a revolution. Jobs believed computers shouldn't be reserved for scientists and corporations. They should be personal, beautiful, and empowering. Apple's early products, the Apple II and later the Macintosh, weren't just tools. They were statements of freedom. Every curve, every color, every sound was designed to feel human. When other companies focused on performance, Jobs focused on experience. Design, he said, is not just what it looks like and feels like. Design is how it works. His insistence on perfection made him difficult, but it also made Apple iconic. The world began to notice a new kind of company was born, one that married art with technology. From a humble garage, Jobs had launched a movement, a belief that innovation isn't about numbers or specs, but about imagination and emotion. 3. The fall, losing everything. 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock. By 1985, Apple had grown into a giant, and so had the tension inside it. Steve's drive for perfection clashed with his executives, and soon he found himself forced out of the company he founded. Imagine building your dream from scratch, only to be told you no longer belong. For Jobs, it was devastating. For the comeback building Next and Pixar 12 o'clock, 15 o'clock after leaving Apple, Jobs built Next, a company that created powerful, beautiful computers for universities and businesses. Though it didn't sell millions, its technology would later power the rebirth of Apple itself. But even more remarkable was his investment. In Pixar's struggling animation studio, under Jobs' vision, Pixar transformed from near bankruptcy into the home of storytelling magic, creating Toy Story, the world's first fully computer-animated film. It changed animation forever and brought joy to millions. Behind the scenes, Jobs was changing too. He learned to lead with empathy, to value creativity over control, and to let ideas breathe. These years taught him that innovation needs both structure and soul. They humbled him, refined him, and prepared him for his greatest comeback. When Apple bought Next in 1997, Steve Jobs returned home wiser, calmer, sharper. The world had written him off, but he was about to prove that real vision never dies, it only evolves. 5 changing the world, 15 o'clock, 18 o'clock. When Jobs returned to Apple, the company was on the brink of collapse. But with focus, discipline, and unrelenting passion, he rebuilt it from the ground up. The iMac, iPod, iPhone, and iPad didn't just sell, they transformed industries. He made technology feel magical, personal, alive. People don't know what they want until you show it to them, he said, and he showed the world what innovation truly meant. His leadership was not about comfort, but conviction, the belief that perfection was possible if you cared enough. Even as cancer began to weaken his body, his mind stayed sharp, his passion unbroken. He was obsessed not with creating products, but with creating experiences that connected people. When he stood on stage holding the first iPhone, it wasn't just a launch, it was a moment that changed history. Steve Jobs didn't just build devices. He built dreams, he built movements, and he built a legacy that reminds us to stay hungry, stay foolish, and never stop believing that the world can be reshaped by a single idea. When Steve Jobs stood on that stage for the last time, his body was frail. Steve Jobs didn't just build Apple, he built a mindset. A way of thinking that said passion matters more than profit, purpose more than power. Even as he faced death, he spoke not of fear, but of gratitude for the chance to live creatively, fully, and differently. So when life challenges you, remember Steve's words: stay hungry, stay foolish, keep dreaming, keep building, and never stop believing that your vision, no matter how impossible, can change the world.